Hey, everybody. Hope your virtual WonderCon is going well. Listen, at the beginning of March, did you hear a scream, a joyous scream? For all the way from the far side of the Delta Quadrant? My goodness. No, if you haven't heard by now, there is not only a Voyager documentary in the works that even the best pandemic can't put down, but that it actually sets some pretty historic levels on the crowdfunding end of it, aside from all the great plans that are in store. So today we've got the team that's behind that Voyager documentary, and you'll find out behind some of the best documentaries of recent years, most of which have tended to be about Star Trek. So I'm really thrilled to let you know what is the latest with the as yet untitled Voyager documentary, starting with executive producer David Zappone of 455 Films, who you're going to find out has been rolling these out for a few years. We've also got with us Joe Kornbrodt, producer, Lolita Fatjo, producer and talent coordinator, and no stranger to the Star Trek universe, Kevin Layne, who's producer, co-director, and DP, and someone you might have heard before, Garrett Wang is here with us, of course, Ensign Kim, the once and future Ensign Kim, and Captain, depending on what alternate timeline you're in. So Dave, why don't you kick us off? I mean, we should remind everybody that you've been doing these for over a decade, the Shatner documentaries and Get a Life, the Captains, work with Adam Nimoy on For the Love of Spock, and one of my favorites, undersold favorites, the Chaos on the Bridge.
Yeah.
And most notably, the one that really kind of blew up for people in a good way, the DS9 documentary that really tugged at heartstrings for people and put things on the map. And what's funny about the Voyager documentary is, we've been laughing about this, is you're into this now for several months. The pandemic slowed things down, so we want to talk about that. But people just assuming that, oh, it's Star Trek, so of course there's a great DS9 doc. Now, of course, there'll be a Voyager doc. So why don't you talk about how this came together and maybe a contrast to some of the prior titles?
Yeah, it was really the success of What We Left Behind that led to this. And because I really thought What We Left Behind would be our last one, only because I'd done so many Star Trek documentaries. I love Voyager, but I didn't know that cast quite as well. And I'd gotten to know Deep Space Nine people so well, especially Ira. But this is actually a funny story. I was at with Shatner and Frakes, and I said to Frakes, What We Left Behind was great, but I think I'm done. I'm burned out. It's enough Star Trek. He said, "What? You're the guy. You have to do Voyager." So I listened, and here we are at the end of this, almost at the end of this incredibly successful crowdfunding campaign. So it turned out to be the right move, I think.
But I just love that attitude of fans that just think everything's going to be automatic. And nothing is automatic, right?
No. And quite frankly, as Garrett has come to learn, and his help has been invaluable to us, it's just as hard as making a film, raising the money. The campaign becomes an endeavor, a film in itself. So it's like you're doubling the work for sure, because it's just that labor intensive. Because great, our campaign's over. Now we've got to not only make the film, but fulfill all these tens or thousands of people, and T-shirts and DVDs and experiences, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
So yeah, nothing is automatic, but Voyager is there. But and the plan was to get going a year ago.
Well, that's thanks to Lolita. Lolita was great enough, and CBS, to allow us to film the 2020 Star Trek cruise. Mm-hmm. So that's what kicked it off. So we were there, as Garrett will tell you, mm-hmm. the only physical reunion that this cast had for its 25th was on that cruise, because everything shut down literally the day after we docked, went back ashore. So we were so fortunate. We shot more than I think we ever have in an entire week. We're talking 18-hour days. We grabbed everything, the excursions, the panels, interviews, Tim Russ on stage, Garrett's stand-up, all kinds of amazing things we've never gotten And then
Garrett
the
ran
plan was,
around interviewing fans all over the cruise
Yep.
ship with Scott and you.
I mean, how great this ECP, this company is. They gave us their main stage one night, and we were able to have fans come up on stage and tell them what Voyager meant to them. And we did this, what guys, until like midnight or 1 a.m. It went on, and it was great because you get all of these emotional, just you realize how connected these people were. And maybe Garrett, you could speak to the fact, because I'd never been on a Star Trek cruise, but you brought up that the good thing about this one, it was all Star Trek, right?
Yeah. The whole concept of having a Star Trek convention on a cruise has been around for quite some time.
Yeah.
It's been around for over probably 2 decades. Does that sound right, Lolita?
It's the 80s.
Mid-80s.
Okay, yeah. So it's been a while.
But they were always just a part
but
of
they're
the whole
always
trip.
they're always a portion of the passenger manifest. Like, and it's usually at some point maybe it might have been half, or maybe 2/3 at the most, but never the entire ship. And where every single person was a fan, and that's what made the energy so different from anything else that you would attend, right? And it was palpable.
And they never decorate the ships like they do
Correct.
this. They turn the whole ship into a bridge.
I just think we're really lucky that we got that footage, because let's face it, we started with a head full of steam, and then the pandemic was sort of like, okay, just let's shut everything down. And thank God they filmed so much content on that cruise ship, but that was literally the beginning of gathering footage. But social distancing, lockdown number 7, COVID variant strain 6B, is coming to everyone has been really just shortchanged.
You were robbed. You and fandom and everybody were robbed of all the celebrations that were supposed to happen because
there were big celebrations in the UK, in Germany, and all these worldwide celebrations.
So we're all excited about the Voyager documentary. You were inspired by some of the gods there, it sounds like, David, to get on with it. What's going to be, I guess part of this is the fundraising, the crowdfunding that got going 1st of March. But out of the gate, what were your plans to make it? I mean, the thing with every Star Trek, every new series, every new movie, to me, it's got to be exactly the same, but totally different. So what was the rough plan going in for what was going to be distinctive about the Voyager doc?
The cruise really opened us up from the jump, because we've been filming all of these at conventions. And even what Garrett was saying before, the difference with this cruise is you have 3,000 of just the committed fans. We've never had that. Even in Vegas, you're walking through casinos, gamblers are looking at you like you're insane. Why are these people in costume? And this was just the converted. I'd never been in that kind of an atmosphere before. And then the ability to follow Garrett and to film him underwater, that brought our production value up. So, and then from there, it's Germany and London, which Lolita can speak to. We're very hopeful for London this year.
Very, very hopeful. I spoke to the promoter the other day, and it really looks like we'll be able to do London. And he's going to pick it up and move it right there in November. It'll be all these Trek Voyager fans and actors, hopefully, that were supposed to be there last year. So fingers crossed.
And it's still going to be Voyager centric, right, Lolita? That's the key. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yep.
Very good. Try to reclaim some of those lost anniversaries.
Yeah,
that's right. Exactly.
And to your point, Larry, how is this going to be different? Well, it sounds simple, but just by the very fact that it's a different show, it's a different cast, it's just a different, not better, not worse, just different dynamic of the relationships and the show itself. I think one thing, when we went into what we left behind, the feeling, at least from the creative team behind that show, was that, and a lot of the cast, was that it was an underdog that never got its due. And I don't think I can say the same for Voyager. I think Voyager inherently has a much broader appeal in the fandom and in society, in just popular culture. That said, we're finding the story. There's still a lot there. I mean, the fact that it was the first show to feature a Star Trek show to feature a female lead, that alone sets it apart from the rest of it. But also just the dynamic of that cast. It might have been really the largest cast and the most diverse cast of any of the series. So there's
it was a
lots
network show. I always loved that back in the day. Well, it's the network show, and
Well,
that would infuriate
that's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good point to piggyback off of what Joe was saying, because this one had the pressure of being the flagship, show for a new network. And that came with a lot of pressure. It came with a lot of pressure for, the studio, came with a lot of pressure to Kate Mulgrew, who was the second, as we all know, after they had already been through, the change. So there was a whole different dynamic with that one, not only with the cast, but the pressures associated with launching that show.
Right. Well, that's, the whole, the casting of Kate Mulgrew as Janeway, as the second actress in there is just one of the many sagas out of Voyager. Dave, are we going to get, guys, all of you, and Lolita, are we going to be able to get to a lot of those? There are, in the art world, what is that phrase, warts and all? I mean, are we going to, tell that lovingly, but tell it?
Yeah, I mean, that's been our policy, hasn't it?
Right.
It's also to give everybody a say, because one thing with documentaries is, the truth is somewhat subjective, and that it's really dependent upon someone's recollection. And
that's right.
All we can do is just record as many opinions as possible, and that's what we intend to do. I mean, Garrett, how long did we speak to you? I think you hold the record for
6 hours.
Longest interview.
At Joe's house.
This was not on the ship. This was a land-based interview.
Well, Garrett's been holding it in all these years, so he's finally got a chance to let it out.
So Larry, I can say that judging from the length of Garrett's interview, yes, I think we're going to be going into some very great detail into everything. And you saw what we did in Chaos. I mean, I would say Chaos on the Bridge is warts and all. Ultimately, it's an uplifting ending, isn't it, to the story?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
It is a Star Trek. I mean, you want to have that at the end, but telling the story, well, what you leave behind had lots of little hiccups and bumps that eventually are just part of the tapestry, but, Yeah.
And Ira Bear, we were not going to, gloss over anything. We did every issue dead on. But ultimately, we're all fans. We all love the show. So of course that's going to come through.
But we're also storytellers, and we love good stories, and good stories are complex, and they're not, they have ebbs and flows and highs and lows. And what makes any story interesting is those struggles and those triumphs, and how you got there from point A to point B. It's filling in everything in between that makes it compelling and interesting.
And for me too, it's always the perspective. Everyone has a different perspective. It's like Crash, right? We all see the same accident, and we all have a different take on that accident. So that's human nature. It's all coming from our lenses, our individual lenses. And I've always found that fascinating in pursuing, documentaries and, the real thing.
Yeah, I just remember being, working in the Hart Building with Jerry Taylor and Michael Piller there on a basis. And there was so much tension and pressure to get this launched. And then with the whole changing of the captain, it'll be really interesting to hear Jerry Taylor's perspective on that, because that was very intense. And they had to do that so quickly because, as we all know, you lose a day of shooting, you're losing millions of dollars.
Let's talk about Jerry Taylor a little bit, because she hasn't gotten much due. She hasn't been visible out there. Lolita, you have the direct connect. So we're all excited about getting her in there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I mean, Jerry Taylor is just, first of all, she's a wonderful human being. And I'm just so happy that I got to know her, not only in a work situation, but on a personal level. But listen, the bottom line, if it weren't for Jerry's voice in the Voyager, creating a Voyager, it wouldn't be the show it is today. She brought that female captain in and just created her to be, you know, what everybody loves about Janeway. Of course, Kate brought her acting skills to it in her own, but Jerry really was the driving force behind that character. So we will get to interview her.
And all the Indiana behind that character.
Exactly.
I mean,
yes.
a lot. That's how literally a lot of Janeway is right out of Jerry. And yes, Jerry's so humble. It's like she retired midway through the series before she handed it off to Brannon and said, "Okay, I'm done. I've said all I need to say. You all have interviewed me to death." And I did. A lot of people did back in the day. And she's had this, "I'm retired now. You don't need anything more from me." So it's so great that you're going to get her on camera.
Absolutely.
I mean, a whole generation of young women and girls have not heard her voice directly, really.
Absolutely. I mean, she has been, I think in all that time since she retired years ago, she's maybe done one convention. So people would really love to hear from her. And so I feel very that we're going to get her to be part of this documentary.
Yeah. Garrett, what are you excited about in this? Anything?
I'm just excited that Voyager is finally getting its due. Because as much as we already talked about DS9 sort of being the underdog, Voyager is also a bit of the underdog. You know, I mean, I find that definitely there's this kind of pecking order. You know, it's like, okay, you got the TOS guys, you know, Shatner knows his series, but he doesn't watch anyone else's series. You know what I'm saying? And then it goes to TNG. They know their show, but they don't watch anything after their show. And it's sort of like and then there's DS9 and Voyager. Voyager's sort of like the step kid in a way, I find. And I'm just happy that we're going to get a chance to tell our story.
Garrett,
and we are so
share
different.
share the thing that you talked to us about earlier,
Which thing?
about how your interaction with fans at conventions, and then they said you told that story.
Yeah. I love it when I meet fans recently, but pre-pandemic, just before pandemic began, when I meet fans at conventions and they come up and they say, I don't know what to say. We're big TOS and big TNG fans. When Voyager came around, we watched a couple episodes and it didn't interest us. And we just kind of wrote it off, you know, for one reason or another. And then Netflix, you know, carries all the Voyager episodes, and we started watching it. And I swear to you, I can't believe we waited 2 decades to watch your show. So whenever we get new Trek fans that are Trek fans of the original or TNG that come around to Voyager 2 decades later, 15, 20, 22 years later, it just warms my heart. And then our Trek is so unique in that we did have a different female captain for 2 days, and then she quit, which really that put my whole schedule and my career was a bit kiboshed by that move, because once they realized that Geneviève Bujold was no longer going to be Janeway, they had to scramble. They had to go on a mad scramble to find somebody else. Well, they already felt
like they'd read everybody in the galaxy.
Well, they had already read
That's
Kate.
right.
Kate Mulgrew had gone in. Her interview, her initial audition was horrible, from what I heard. It was no good. And so to get a second shot at reading for a major role is huge. I think Kate had just been dropped by William Morris or her agency or whatever right before she got that second shot at Voyager. And I remember there's only a few actors that were around when Geneviève Bujold was there. I was one of them. Robbie McNeil was one of them. When we leave Deep Space Nine, we did shoot that scene. But looking for another female captain, I had to turn down. I was booked to be on Mortal Kombat the movie. I was supposed to fly to Thailand and shoot for during the break between the ending of filming the Voyager pilot and filming the first episode after the pilot. That's when I was going to be in Thailand, and that went out the window. You know, a lot of different things that I had planned, you know, career-wise, went south, unfortunately.
And that's yeah. And that whole thing about if they had not been able to find a woman, they would have, half the world would have been screaming, but they were going to have a male captain and then make the doctor and the first officer. I mean, all those fallback plans.
Yeah.
I know that's what you'll get into, Dave.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Everybody. Yeah.
Garrett, I have a question. So
yes.
Kate was dropped by her agency. Does that mean she didn't have to give anybody 10%?
No, she found Boy, I bet she wished that was the case. No, someone else picked her up. You know, a smaller boutique agency decided to take her, and boy, would they! Can you imagine that? I mean, she literally, I think she went up, she did the Voyager audition, the first round, didn't get it, and William Morris or whoever, whatever big, I think it was Morris, it said, okay, you know, we're parting ways. Yeah, bye-bye. And then the other boutique agency picks her up, and then she gets a second shot. And I guarantee you, her point person at William Morris was like, oh my God, what the heck?
Exactly.
If we just waited a little bit longer. But they didn't know. They didn't know Jean-Pierre Bujold was going to quit day 2. I mean, that was just unheard of, you know? But we talk about, this documentary will talk about my interactions with Jean-Pierre Bujold. Like, very few people talk to her, but I did. I got a chance to talk to her, and I got into the inner workings of her mind of why she quit, you know. But this kind of stuff, you don't hear about this, but the documentary, you will. So this is what's so great about the doc. You're going to get all these behind the scenes and these dynamics and the politics behind the making of Star Trek Voyager, which really is, I think, more complex just because of the fact that we had one female captain that quit after day 2. Then they had to find somebody else, you know. And let's face it, having a female captain was a huge deal in 1995. There were a lot of people that were not happy that a woman was allowed to be in command. And these are the comments from some very close-minded people that didn't think this was proper. And it's not shocking that there's this type of mentality in the United States of America, because let's face it, we're the only first world country that hasn't had a female leader. We're the only one. And it's shocking. It's like, wait a minute, Germany can, England can, I mean, all these other countries are able to say, yes, a woman can run the whole show. But the United States of America, no, they can't do it, you know? Yeah. So 1995, the inclusion of a female captain, and let's face it, she was basically the president of that Star Trek show, right? She was the leader, right. Was really looked down upon, or at least people were very tentative about, you know, this selection of a female captain. So that is unique in of itself.
Yeah, we used to get, it was before there, you know, social media wasn't existent then, and even email wasn't too popular. We used to get dozens of fan mail, of course.
Hate mail, I know, like
hate mail.
Yeah.
Hate mail
like
about
really
captain.
Angry though, right, Lolita? I mean,
really
just to the point of death threats. Like we're
angry.
We're gonna come down to Paramount and blow up your sound stages because how dare you allow this woman to be in command? Really?
Yeah,
You're gonna kill us? Okay.
Lolita, the fax number leaked, right? And the
That's
faxes
right. It was
were going.
The fax machine went crazy, and it was in my assistant Larry's wife's office, and that thing was going constantly. And there was so much hate out there. Amazing.
But then there was also the other side. Don't you dare not. There was the other side too. Don't you dare not have a woman now that you.
Of course.
That's right.
Of course.
They had already made the commitment.
Yeah.
And everybody was excited about it.
If they had decided to go with a man after they had already cast a woman, that would have just been death to the show. Yeah. Again,
I mean,
Jerry Taylor
and leading off the network the way it was supposed to. Hey, speaking of women, Voyager had all these female characters. There's actually a kind of a tragic saga in the saga of Jennifer Layne and Kes, and you've got Jerry coming in, and they've hired a bimbo. Oh my God, she's really an actress. I mean, you've got, you know, much less. And then here's Roxanne holding down B'Elanna here with her saga being just an incredibly awesome character. All these women beyond Janeway in Voyager and for the fan base. But here stylistically, Kevin, a little bird told me that you photographing and filming women is one of your I say specialties, but one of your trademarks, maybe. Are you looking forward to? I mean, you've worked on these documentaries all along too for years?
I have.
Is there anything special that way? That's
yeah. I mean, it is, because literally, as long as you can put women in the right light, and they feel good about being in that light, then they're more likely to be themselves and come with the goods because they're comfortable. As simple as that may sound, I find that to be the truth. And, you know, most women in front of the camera know where that light should be.
Yeah.
And they're, you know, the Shakiras of the world, or any number of other people I've worked with over the year. But you know, we're all very excited about the woman's point of view, because let's face it, This is and has been a man's world. Like it, agree with it, or don't agree with it. And it's just refreshing now to have a series that's got the strength of these women, so strong, all of them in their own right. And, we're excited about getting their point of view about, this whole process of how decisions are made and what the writers do and what the network says and all of that stuff. Because, even the writer's room, and Lolita can speak to this, and Jerry Taylor, when she was talking about Jerry Taylor, I'm thinking, wow, Jerry walked into a male writing room again, and she had to, put her stakes down, and she gained everybody's respect, of course. But, that was unusual back. I mean, how many women were in the writing room on any of these, Lolita?
Very,
And what
very.
was the ratio?
I mean, in those days, it was very few. Melinda Snodgrass was
I
on,
was gonna say.
she was on the TNG writing crew for a while.
Mhm.
When Jerry came, she came in as supervising producer, first of all, not as executive producer, and found herself in the midst of all these men. Absolutely. And she also wasn't a Star Trek fan, and she was so dedicated every single night. She would take home 3 or 4 episodes. And in those days, it was all on VHS tapes. But she knew, I remember talking to her early on, and I was her assistant then. And she realized, she had to learn this whole world of Star Trek, and also walking into yet another series, because she'd worked on numerous series where she was a woman. And if you know Jerry on a personal level, it's hard to believe that she's as a fighter to get her way up in all these men's faces, but she does it so delicately and as a mother figure. So,
And she was a triple threat. They loved to throw that term around, writer and director. And they never got her to direct on Voyager, but she was a full-time job holding that nest down. But yeah, though, I mean, like you have Dorothy Fontana on the classic series originally, like kind of the one woman, and then Next Gen.
Jerry came to Next Gen first. That's right.
And then you've got Lisa Klink a little bit, Melinda during Next Gen.
I believe the only time there were 2 women in the writer's room at the same time was on Voyager. It was with Jerry and Lisa Klink.
Yeah. And Lisa,
and you know, I just want to speak to how many generations of women that have been influenced by this show. I mean, you're talking about women that are in their 20s and 30s and 40s now that are doing an amazing job in their own respective career fields because of this show. I mean, because if you watch something on television as a child or your formative years, and you're a woman, you're female, and you see a woman in charge of everything, then that ceiling, that glass ceiling it's broken. You know what I'm saying? I really feel that when we look back on history, when this country finally has a female president, it's going to be because Voyager had a big deal, had a lot to do with that. I really do believe that.
You could say that all of these Star Treks, as far as women concerned, have built to Voyager.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because Nichelle Nichols, and then all through little bit by little bit, but Voyager came with, we're committing to this strong female cast, boom. And so, this has been a progression over the years.
And Kev, look at the franchise now. I mean, wow.
Right. Continue, Dave. Great point.
Behind the camera as well. Really how it's grown.
Right. Well, let's talk about the documentary, because it's been a month now, but the crowdfunding just blew out of the gate. And I know there's always nervousness. You plan for everything. You, on one hand, you'd love to have the success. You'd love to have all those stretch goals laid out, but you got to deal with the reality of nothing's there till it's there. But on the other hand, it's almost, in hindsight, feels like, and I, don't strike me down for saying this, a blessing with the pandemic and the delay, because it made everybody hungrier. People are just more focused. There's fewer distractions. All the new Star Trek series have come and gone and got out of the way, so you're not having to compete for attention there. I mean, in a weird way, does it feel like maybe, shame on me for saying this, but whatever it was, it sure was an explosion out of the gate. I mean, all that pent up demand and the love, And I think people also, I've seen fans say, "Oh, I didn't get a chance to donate to the DS9 doc, so I'm going to do it, make sure and get in on this one." I mean, it's just been a whole emotion.
There's a whole confluence of things that made this success possible. We've all talked about, we believe how well What We Left Behind was received by the fans had a big impact on the success of this campaign, as did For the Love of Spock had a big impact on what we were able to do with What We Left Behind. And then you bring in the pandemic, and people are at home, and some are working and some are not. But those that are working, they aren't going out and spending their money on that much. There's nothing to go to. So it's there. That was a unique thing. The fact that Star Trek is so much, there's what, 5 shows in production or pre-production right now. So it's just a different time. When we did What We Left Behind, there was Discovery was coming out. I don't think it was even.
No, it hadn't even been on the air yet.
Yeah. So now there's a whole new resurgence. So it's just, but it really, the biggest success is because of the fans and building upon what we've done before. They've accepted us, which is wonderful.
Well, I would just say the hardest of the hardcore Voyager fans felt cheated because they lost all those celebrations in the actual year.
That was the other thing, is that we our campaign manager, Ryan, our previous 2 crowdfunding campaigns, we waited until the day of the day that it started to publicize. We thought, okay, you go in and you make us, you announce it and you have a month and go. And he said, no, you really should be doing this, publicizing this 3 months in advance. Well, we were already 2.5 months away from now when we engaged the services. So we started on January 1st with an announcement by Garrett. And that also had, I believe, had a really big impact, because we were able to access the email list from the previous 2 films that we had crowdfunded and let those people know that we were doing this. Garrett, by getting that word out and using social media, helped us build the awareness of the fan base that March 1st was coming. And so when March 1st hit, wow, that just took us all by surprise. I mean, we expected to do better than we did with What We Left Behind on the first day, but not to the extent of this. This was a tsunami of love.
What was that crazy what was it, in 6-7 hours you'd passed?
6 hours.
What was it, Lo?
Was it 6 hours?
It was a little less than 6 hours. We hit the initial goal of 150,000, which took What We Left Behind 27 hours.
That's a big key though, but just to piggyback what he said, Garrett's help and involvement in the promotion of this has been, it can't be overstated. It's been invaluable. I mean, I think that really made a big difference. And Lolita and the work and the contacts that she's had with talent, because there's more to come.
And the camaraderie, Garrett, you can speak to this, between the casts. I mean, look at how many Deep Space Nine and Enterprise people are helping us. It's great.
Yes, it's a great Star Trek family. That's what it is. Every actor that I contacted outside of Voyager to help us out in whatever way, they said, of course, there was no hesitancy. It's a big Star Trek family. Yeah,
Lolita, that's also because of who we are as Voyager actors. I feel like each one of us, when the other Star Trek cast members from other shows are around us, they're genuinely happy to see us, because I find that most of us are very personable, and we're not, we're not these recluses. We're not divas. We're not, and so I find that when DS9 actors, TNG actors come across us, they are legitimately happy to see us. And so when asked to do something for us, they're kind of like, oh yeah, we'll help those guys out, so that's kind of, we got lucky with that, right? Because there's always somebody in the cast, you're like, Jesus, that guy or that woman, but with us across the board, there's that uniformity of generosity of spirit and just kindness and just fun people, I find. And I agree with Joe. I don't look at this pandemic as glasses half empty. It's definitely glasses half full. Not only do we, as 455 now has more time to sort of think things through. There's no, the deadlines have been really extended now, you know, in terms of getting stuff in and edited and all that stuff. There's no, that rush is not there. And Joe hit on something. Because of this pandemic, usually people spend their disposable income on trips. They go to Hawaii, they go to England, no one's doing that. So
That's right.
they have all this disposable income that is still sitting in their bank accounts. And they're thinking, you know what? Let's donate to the Voyager. Let's get this Voyager documentary going. So that, if anything, this pandemic is a godsend in a way, you know? So if everyone looks at it as a glasses half full, I think that's the way everyone should look at it.
And at the end of the day, the community is 55 years strong.
Mhm.
The franchise, 55 years, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yep.
Well, I
Yeah.
have to say too, Garrett, you're talking about the other cast. Look, there's one cast that's looking the other direction, and the kickoff video with Connor was hysterical because it's what's on top of mind.
Wonderful.
Talking about people expecting all, you know, that joke about the Enterprise people. Well, when's ours? Or we're going to get ours, right?
I know.
You know.
I've had so many people comment on Connor's participation in that because it just came out of the blue when you watch the video. You don't expect that to come. So, and he was so happy to do it. And I think that just, again, like Garrett said, it just shows how great the Voyager actors are. People be around
Lolita,
them.
what made it for me was when Connor leaves frame. And when he pops back in, he comes in sideways. He goes, guys, I can still hear you. I mean, just like, you know, that was, you can't even script that. that
Well,
was
that was ad-libbed. Yeah. that
Yep.
was-
Yeah.
Entirely.
Well, yeah, that's the point for those of you out there who haven't had a chance to see the pitch video and go to the Indiegogo page. You still have 3 days, right? Until April 1st.
Right. This
Yep.
video will be up for a good while, and you can
Yeah.
jump in. Yeah.
Great.
What's the after the Indiegogo formally closes? Is there any way for people to participate after that somehow, or is that all down the line in the cards, or what are we?
There's a way through Indiegogo to continue to contribute after the campaign's over, I believe,
Okay.
through what they call in demand.
Okay.
Or we may go with another service called Backer Kit, which allows you to, you can still get some of the shirts and things like that. And that will go on, but the actual campaign will be over, but there will be a way to contribute and still get some of those perks that everybody loves so much.
But the
Those
best,
those important
strategy here
perks-
is to jump in now when you're first
Definitely.
seeing this. Yeah.
Those
Right, but
important
Larry-
perks that Garrett talked about.
Yeah, the hot tub with Tuvok and foot rub, whatever. We're joking about these different benefits from the Indiegogo campaign. But Larry, it's really important to point out that I think a lot of fans are out there are a little confused. They think that when they see a goal hit, that is it, like the funding is enough, but
Right.
it's not closed. You know, the more funds they get, the better this documentary can be. That's the bottom line, right? So it's not a matter of, oh, they reached that stretch goal, I guess they have everything, you know. That's why this thing is for 30 days. But even the first few days of this Indiegogo campaign, there were already people online chattering about, no, I was about to donate, but I noticed they reached their goal, so I guess I don't have to. And we just want to make that really clear, guys, that
Right.
you know, that is not, reaching a stretch goal doesn't mean that it's over, you know. So we really would love the contributions to keep coming on in, because that's only going to make this documentary that much better.
To address what Garrett just brought up, we're crowdfunding, so we're relying upon people's donations. So when we put up that $150,000, that was the bare minimum for us to be able to produce something. But the more, as you say, the more that people contribute to this film, the more we can raise, the more creative things that we can do, and that's what those stretch goals point to.
Right.
So one thing that
So Joe, talk about the HD.
Talk
We
about what
want
we
to-
left behind.
We want to do the HD, and let me put it this way. I'm going to do two intros to this. Either we know from CBS that we can do it, and so and everybody knows this. So now everybody knows that we're able to do the HD, or it's Well, we're still waiting to hear if we can do the HD. I think that's enough of a lead in. But with what we left behind, we were able to up-res and go back to the film negatives and scan those and put them into glorious in HD. And actually, we even up-res those to 4K because ultimately we delivered the film at UHD, Ultra HD, 4K. And we want to do that, and we will do that with the Voyager doc. And what will be dependent on, the more we raise, the more minutes of that series we can do and include that in the film. And we also have some other things that we want to do that would be even more expensive. So once again, but we'll make the film just blow people's minds. So the more we can raise, the more we can do, and the more exciting this film will be, the more interesting this film will be, and the more talked about by the fans and the public this film will be.
Right. The sky's the limit. I mean, there are no limits. Yes.
Only the limit of the budget determines the limits that we have. And even with that, we always seem to rise above the constraints of our budget to deliver quality.
Look at the track record of all these documentaries, and that's what's made so many people excited. I mean, I saw what we left behind with 2 or 3 completely non-fans. They weren't just not Niners fans. They were like not Star Trek people. And the subtext and the emotion, just the story and the saga, and all of those personalities. And you had so many wonderful little moments. And people are excited to see that breakthrough with I don't know, Garrett, you think we'll have a few moments like that with this bunch?
I think so. I think so. We're all human.
I think so too. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So any last thoughts, guys?
I can't stress how much of a blessing it was to work with Ira on what we left behind, and how illuminating and freeing for me it was, that creative process. And that influence definitely for me, I carry that over to this film and want to approach this film with that same creative spark that Ira reignited in me, something that I perhaps had lost in all my years of just being part of the grist of the Hollywood post-production scene.
Because Ira was kind of a driving force. He was
not even kind of
a passion for him too. And it's a different vibe with, I mean, everybody's excited, but have you had to kind of take that Ira, the lack of an Ira, because Jerry's, in on, we've lost Micah. We haven't said a word about Micah Pillar. I think Rick's on board to be as far as the top of the mountain here, but is it a little bit different vibe than the prior docs?
Yeah, we don't have the showrunner.
And of course, Shatner was driving the earlier ones.
Running us, yeah. So it's different, but I think what Joe said is absolutely on point. What Ira did was he turned us into the writer's room. So we all became the writers, our group. And we have the dry erase board, and we're taking moving scenes. We treated it exactly like he would treat a Deep Space Nine episode. So now I think, Joe, what you said, we're taking what we learned from Ira, and we're bringing it right over to this film, for sure. And I think in some ways it's going to make the interviews different in that, people are talking to Ira now. At least they're talking to a dispassionate person, someone who was not there. So you're going to get a different type of interview, perhaps. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Dave, maybe you should have me along to interview them.
Yeah, Aaron, I'll pick you up on that in a second.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because you're right about that. When you have someone in front of the camera that's interviewing you, and you know them, they're part of the whole thing. It's a little different when it's oh, I'm Dave Zappone. I did all these other ones. I didn't work with you on Voyager, but I know a lot about Trek. It's a little different.
Well, Garrett, that's exactly why having Lolita along.
Yeah, I was going to say we've already done that when I interviewed Brannon Braga and Andre Bormanis. Brannon needs to come from Lolita, so you want to have that connection. I think.
But Garrett, if you want to go on, Cal, say it now for everybody to hear. Absolutely, we'd love to have. Love to have you, and it takes the
Definitely.
pressure off of me. So I'm like, yes.
I just wanted to contribute to make this the best possible documentary ever. That's it.
Cool.
So
Well, that's why also, Lolita, when you mentioned you were going to be the one, I think you said talking to Jerry because you have that
Absolutely.
connection.
Yeah.
And Jerry is kind of she's not reticent, but she's got that very humble attitude about, oh, what can that's
Yeah.
I'm coming back around to that. But that's what's got me. One of the things that's so exciting about this, not that there are 47 other exciting chapters to this Voyager saga, but having Jerry get back to this generation of women, young girls and women that have come along, that's a factor that was not part of the saga when the show was on the air, as there's so many other ones. The whole Netflix comeback for DS9 and Voyager. I mean, TNG had this audience, and then it's like Voyager and DS9 split it, and then even more drifted away in the day. And that is such an old chapter now of the saga, since we've had streaming and the CBS now Paramount Plus channel, having it also out there, and all those new generations of fans finding these shows, including Voyager, that weren't part of the original, formula.
No, absolutely. And I wonder, I'm looking forward to talking to Jerry about all this, because being retired and out of the business like she is, I wonder how much she realizes that this has affected so many.
She hasn't been at conventions. She hasn't had it in her face that way. Yeah.
So it'll be a real honor to have her be part of this documentary.
Right. Guys. Well, guys, we don't have anybody from visual effects here, but the visual effects revolution to CGI happened over Voyager's watch. Yeah. So many aspects. Well, listen, this has been a great panel. What's the going away? What are the marching orders here for everybody that want to get a hold of, support the film, or just follow along right now? Normally at this time in the panel, everybody rattles off their social media, and we can do that to stay in touch. But what's the overall driving
Joe,
come
what's
away
the best
here?
place for them to go to follow?
Well, the best place to go is still right now to go to the Indiegogo page, look up the Voyager documentary there. But you can always follow us at Voy Documentary on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also go to our website, which I believe is Voyager Documentary.
Yeah, it's Voyager Documentary.
Voyager. Go to VoyagerDocumentary.com. Sign up for our newsletter. And you can also we have a Facebook group for the Voy documentary where people can share their thoughts. So all those social media avenues are open to you. And of course, you can always reach us directly at 455 Films. You can catch all of us on Twitter. I know Dave is up there all the time.
Yep. The one form of social media that I do use. I admit it. Yeah.
And
Now,
Garrett's
guys,
had
when
his
these-
Delta Flyers cap on the whole time.
I
here.
do.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the podcast that I do with Robbie McNeil. We talk about Voyager episodes. My question is, are we some of these benefits, they've been running out of like mugs and stuff. Are they going to replenish those guys? Is that how that works in terms of if they run out of certain items?
Yeah, if there's sufficient demand, we can do that.
Okay.
It's tough on the physical things like the dinners and the get-together. But the items, we're trying to satisfy demand. And that's the last thing I'll say, Larry, is just this is our final weekend.
Yeah, you're here at the
Spread
end.
the word. Tweet, retweet, just get as many people as you know to just find out about this campaign. Because that was so frustrating last time that some people were like, oh, we love Deep Space Nine. We had no idea about the campaign. So just get the word out all weekend. That's all we can ask.
Yeah, big push at the end. And I'll just say, it's been a thrill for me to be able to help out so far. And on the perks, some of those away missions, I'm going to be doing sections of some of those with the tours that we do with our Trekland Treks, and be able to throw something into the pot to help out too. So
we appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Larry, for all your help.
I'll be joining you for a lot of those away missions, Larry. I'm going to be on them. I'm going to try to hit Robbie McNeil up for a little bit of help on an away mission. I want to see if I can get him to provide a lap dance for whoever's going to.
If he does show up, perhaps he could pilot you around.
He can. McNeil has a Tesla, and he calls it the Delta Flyer, right? So maybe he could bring his Delta Flyer down and pilot me around.
Or we'll get you a golf cart and he can drive you around the lot.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Bring back the decals. Well, everybody, I'm at LarryNemecek.com and Portal 47 every month, and on our live shows, the Trek Files on the Roddenberry Network, and Tuesdays live, and Saturday with Dr. Ali at Life Support Live. So, guys, this has been it's been an exciting month of the public. You've been working on this for well over a year, and the public explosion here of attention with the campaign, and now it's going to be full steam ahead. Are we gonna cross that warp 10 barrier and all turn into amphibians when we?
Threshold, is that what we're talking about?
A little threshold magic on this
documentary, by the way. That will be discussed.
Well, of course it will.
That could be the final shot of the documentary. You just see all the Voyager cast members, but they're all lizards at the very end. They're just sitting there.
That's how you top Alan Moraine on the Voyager documentary.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Got it in there. Well, guys, thanks a lot. We're looking forward to having just an amazing end of the crowdfunding, and then that's just the end of the first chapter, and then it's off with the show. So thanks everybody, and thanks everybody.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank all of you.
Larry.
Good luck. Smooth sailing.
Thank you. Yes.